Hey, Sarah. Unmute yourself. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Dealing with the dreary weather?
Yeah, dealing with it. Yeah. I'm just gonna add some people in as they come in.
Yeah, no worries.
Tisha is here. Hey, Tisha. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello. Sorry about that.
Hi.
I get the
I'm just
same
going to
thing.
add people as they come in, and then everybody can unmute themselves. Hold on one second. Get everybody situated on audio. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
This is the first time I've done one of these in this format. So, oh wait, I've got some background noise, don't I? Let's see. Okay. I'm just going to let more people come in, and then if we have to, I can reset the room. But I'm Paige Schulte. I'm a real estate agent. I am a mom of 3 kids. I live in Gig Harbor North, and I work for Windermere Real Estate out here in Gig Harbor. It's my zone of happiness. And I wanted to bring together people to find out what the concerns are on buying and selling in this market, and just to hear what the temperature check is. I'm in the business all the time, and even though it's been a pandemic era for our family, my kids are home. I've got 3 babies. Well, they're bigger than that. They're 10, 11, and 8, but part-time schooling and all of that. I'm a bit out of touch sometimes from understanding what people know and what they don't know about the market. So does anybody have any immediate questions? Nobody has any immediate questions, like what's the market doing? How do open houses work? Are there open houses right now? Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Does anybody have anything immediate? And I can go through the list of questions that I've gotten.
Question.
So, yeah.
In one of your Instagram posts the other day, you were talking about a pre-inspection for your buyer. So is that a full inspection though, or is it like a
mini inspection?
Yeah.
And you're thinking of it from a buyer standpoint?
On either side.
Okay.
I just didn't know how, like if you are having your seller do that, I can see.
So, yeah. So I'll speak to it from both sides. On the selling side, I am encouraging my sellers now to get that pre-inspection in advance. I want the sellers to reduce the number of people that come through their house and the traffic, and the number of if the house is priced right, which usually my houses are, then there's going to be a lot of activity. And if there's 5 pre-inspections on a house, that takes up a lot of time for other buyers to be able to get into the house. So if I can provide them with a clean pre-inspection, then we can make the process of selling their house very, very easy. And buyers, for the most part, will use a pre-inspection to check the box and know, okay, this house is pretty clean. If you're a buyer, you're not going to get the little tiny items anyway. You're looking for major issues. You're looking for roof, the house systems and structures, material defects. If my seller goes through an inspection and finds a material defect, we want to get ahead of that anyway, and we're going to fix it. So for a buyer, if I'm looking at this for a buyer, and most houses in the Gig Harbor market are not coming prepared with a pre-inspection, even though we wish they were. For my buyers, I actually personally have a inspector every single weekend on retainer ready for my buyers to do a pre-inspection, because half the battle is finding an inspector at the very last minute that's on call. So I have booked out my inspector. I pay him whether I use him or not, which right now I'm using him a lot. And if we can do a full inspection for a buyer, we do, but I go educate my buyers and say, if we only have an hour, we're going to do the major items: crawl space, pest, roof, water heater and furnace, and maybe look at the siding as much as we can. Septic, in this case, is a separate inspection. We can't really get around that one unless it's been done in advance. So if you're a seller, you can get way ahead of this, get your well inspection done and get your septic done, and be able to give everything to your buyers and make the process very, very seamless, so that people are just throwing money at you. I did that with my own personal house, partly because I'm an agent, but I had everything, including all the HOA documentation, in advance, so they could waive title, they could waive HOA, they could waive everything, and I don't have anybody inside my house ever again. So the more information that you can get at the front end. Jessica, would you be buying or selling in this situation, or both? You're on mute.
I was working on it. More on the buy side, but hoping to use it more on the sell side.
Yeah.
But right now it's primarily for buyers.
So if you're on the buy side, to make yourself more competitive, ask your agent to ask for all of that information. Give me the HOA documents. Let me read through them while I'm preparing my offer. You might have 48 hours to put an offer together if there's an offer review period. And that's gonna give you the opportunity to say, I'm gonna waive this HOA contingency. I'm gonna waive the title contingency because it looks pretty clean. You can make those phone calls in advance. If they've had any inspections or anything like that, then your agent can do some of that pre-work to make your offer stand out even more. Last night, we had 3 offers on a house, and it came down to the HOA contingency, who was willing to waive it. So other than that, all the terms were the same. So sometimes it comes down to just, especially depending on who your seller is, everybody, no matter what market you're in, when you get that contract, you want to make sure that it's going to close. And if you can take away as many contingencies as possible, then that's going to make your seller really happy. And right now, there's very few contingencies that are on the table in multiple offer situations.
So when you're doing that for your buyer, are you paying for that out of pocket, since you have him on retainer and it's super fast?
No, unfortunately, for liability reasons, I don't pay for my buyers' pre-inspections. But what I would recommend, this is why I like my sellers to do it, because there is buyer fatigue in paying for a pre-inspection multiple times. So the 5 people that did a pre-inspection on my house when I sold it, they all, only one of them got the house, and they're going to have to go through this again. So on the side of my sellers, if I'm representing my sellers, I want them to have done a pre-inspection so that we can give buyers that, and that way they don't have to pay, and we don't get as many buyers, because eventually the buyers will say, I can't pay for this every time. Mm-hmm. If you're a buyer, you can say, look, I know I'm not going to get nail pops and all that kind of stuff. Like, only do the mini inspection. So a 30-minute inspection, which is probably all you're going to get on an inspection anyway. If that house is really busy, the agent might say, no 2-hour inspections. I started saying no to the people that were coming to my house, because if I'm letting 5 people do a 2-hour inspection, that's 10 hours of time that other people could be looking at the house. So if you do a mini inspection, it'll be cheaper. It'll be somewhere around, depending on your market. If you're here in Gig Harbor, it might be $150, and you might not get a report. You can do a verbal one. You could do the full inspection, can be somewhere between $485 and $700, depending on the size of the home. But you can scale that back and do a mini inspection just for those major items. But don't waive your septic inspection. You just don't want to do that. Too much paperwork and too much risk.
Right. Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else have any questions directly related to buying and selling on like literally how to do it right now? Because every house is selling within 6 days in this market, or less. And most of it, the reason why they're on even for that long is because they have an offer review period. So if you put a house on the market, I'll give you an example. Goodrich over just across the Purdy Spit got 2 offers on the first day. And then we ended up adding an offer review period because we were in multiples so fast. So sometimes that can happen. If they don't get a heart stopper immediately, they might add an offer review. And we went from 2 offers to 8. But most of them right now are putting offer review dates that are much longer. So you're doing a 4 to 5 day offer review period. And there's nothing else to buy. So I'll share my screen with you really quick if you guys are interested in what the market's doing right now. I put together just a snippet. This is, like I said, all questions are on the table. So if you have a question, let me know. But I'm going to show you. Let me get to where I need to be first so that you don't have to see the guts of my computer. All this stuff is in the way. Present. I'll go here. And then, so I'm going to just go through the numbers. Through the numbers, like I said, really quick. And our sales ratio. So like I said, I cover Gig Harbor. I watch the Seattle market and our neighbors down in all of Pierce County. And then I also serve Port Orchard and Bremerton every now and then. But right now, a balanced market, if everything was balanced, we're looking at a 55% sales ratio. This is your strength of the market. In Gig Harbor right now, our sales ratio is 322% in favor of the sellers. So 41%, there's 41 active homes on the market. Somebody didn't silence her phone. That would be me. Sorry. 41 active homes on the market and 127 pending. So this sales ratio is number of pending homes divided by the active homes. That shows the strength of the market for the sellers. So if you're a seller, you're saying, should I be pushing the market right now? You probably can. Here's the price breakdown. So as a neighborhood expert, I'm only looking at price stratus. So the house that I had on in Gig Harbor that got 3 offers was between 800 and $1 million. There's 10 homes on the market. What does my competition look like? And, we could have gone somewhere under 800,000. We listed at 797, and I thought it would probably go to be somewhere between 800 and 850. And we did end up getting multiple offers. So 450 to 600 is a vanishing market. I think that by June, we will have an entry-level price point in Gig Harbor at 600,000. And only kind of project homes will be in that 500 range, but 450 is almost completely gone. The last one I saw listed today at 499 will escalate. It's over in the Seacliff area, and that's 1,500 square feet. So price per square foot is going up pretty dramatically on these little guys. 600 to 800,000, we have 12 homes. 800 to $1 million, we have 10 homes. And in those 22 homes, a majority of those are brand new construction, not built yet. So if you're looking for a home to move into, you've got like 5 choices between 600 and $1 million. It's really low. So we'll talk about how to find some inventory, but $1 million to 1.5 million is 6 homes. The sales ratio on all of these, 450 to 600 is 360% sales ratio. There's some dogs in that 5. So sorry if I'm offending anybody. Hope it's not your house. But those ones are overpriced. There's 12 in the 600 to 800. That's a 492% sales ratio. This is the hottest market for Gig Harbor right now. Our average price point is 800,000. So anything below that goes very, very quickly. And if you price it right, it's going for a stupid number, like totally insane, because it is built. At this point right now, you just need to have a house that's built for somebody to move into. We've got buyers living in hotels. We've got buyers living with parents in basements. It's really an inventory crisis. Between 800 and $1 million, same thing. Most of those are new construction off of Reed Road. And 1 million to 1.5 million. We have 6 homes. It's 100% sales ratio there. Those houses are selling very fast. I just made an appointment and I have no buyer for it. I wasn't sure if they'd get in town, but I just made an appointment because I thought maybe I wouldn't get one at a listing that came on at 1.25. So if you're working with an agent, you want to make sure that they're being proactive. Before you call them, they're just booking the showing so that they can save their spot for one of their buyers. And then 1.5 million to 2 million, there's 2 homes, but that sales ratio is 300%. That 1.5 million to 2 million is a new market. So your really, really turnkey, gorgeous homes are up there in that 1.5 to 2. And those are selling because they're turnkey. The ones between $1 million and 1.5 million might need some work done. So if you can imagine, I know Ryan Johannes is on here right now and he can pipe in as a lender, but if you are borrowing money right now as a buyer, you're going to try to make that money go as far as you can because money is so cheap. I know a client who secured a jumbo loan at 2.75%. So if we can make our money go further by not having to do anything, there's a lot of buyer purchase capability right now at higher end luxury homes. And then 2 million, which we never watched this market, there's 7 homes in that range. And the fact right now that we're in the beginning of February, there is a market for your higher end homes. And that usually doesn't exist right now. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to just chime in. I get really excited about Gig Harbor stats. This is Gig Harbor bridge to bridge. You can't really see it's a little bit big, but the red is your pending line. So if you see the beginning, this is back in 2016, and then all the way up here to December of, this should be 2020. So I apologize. It didn't print out very well. Anyway, the pending line you can see is the red, and that is an inverted market. So that just shows that there are more buyers than there are active listings. And that is the strength of the market. The farther away those lines are, with the red being on top, the better market it is for sellers. So unfortunately, you can't see the whole thing, but this is the key peninsula. And you can see the distance between the red line and the blue line there. And you can see even back in the summer, we were so low on the number of houses. They were getting an incredible price per square foot and an incredible price for their house. And I haven't pulled the key peninsula stats today, but we're probably at like 12 homes total out there on the market. So, this is Pierce County. I told you I do like to watch what's going on in Pierce County as a total. That way we know what's going to happen over here in Gig Harbor. Tacoma has a very hot market in the lower price points. We are just a little bit more of a luxury market over here in Gig Harbor. So if you look at, this is Pierce County as a whole. And I was showing you before that, Gig Harbor's specific numbers. Because if we used Pierce County as a whole, you'd be like 1.25, it's not that strong. But if you look at Gig Harbor, it's raging. It's a great market for our luxury homes. Okay, let's roll over here, see if I can get my little screen back. Okay, so I lost the back of this, but this is what I talked about before. This was back in December for bridge to bridge. We break Gig Harbor up from the Narrows Bridge to the Purdy Bridge, and then we look at the Key Peninsula because that is a different market. So you shouldn't have an agent that's combining all of it. No price changes before selling is a total of 6 days on the market, and most sellers are getting at least 1% higher than their sale to sold price. And you can see the longer it's on the market, the bigger, the more price drops they need to have. And I can tell you, it feels like trying to catch a falling knife. It's so painful to overprice your house and to have those conversations. So I think that's it for our stats. Does anybody have any questions? Like, how long is this going to last, or why is it like this, or are we going to see the market drop and fall out from underneath us? Which are also good questions.
What are your projections about what you think the future looks like? I know you said the starter price point for Gig Harbor would be close to 600 for June, but what do you see long term? Is it going to keep going up, or what do you think?
Yeah. So, and Ryan, I know Ryan is a mortgage lender, so jump in, Ryan, if you have anything to add. But here's what I think is going to happen, particularly in Gig Harbor. We've got a known commodity. It's as if we've been discovered by California, New York, all of our, I would say, I mean, we are, have a reputation of a more liberal community. And so I think we have some political flocking that's happening. We have some California tax refugees coming over here as well. And then King County is just incredibly expensive as well. So the delta between Seattle and Gig Harbor is still, the price difference actually isn't that different than Seattle, but you get so much more for your money here. And with remote working, this is about as far as they want to go for the next 2 years until they might have to go back to work 2 to 3 days a week, and they can still commute. So I think Gig Harbor's luxury market will continue to expand. I think in the short term, we're going to see a luxury market across the United States being pretty expansive. It was $1 trillion in savings last year in 2020 for the people who still have their jobs. There's so much savings that exists right now that the luxury market is going to be able to have more people setting new comps. If you're a seller right now and you get an offer that's $80,000 over ask, what you're asking your buyers to do is guarantee their purchase price by bringing money to the table. It's protection in case of a low appraisal. I haven't seen very many yet. I'm going to knock on wood right here because I haven't seen very many low appraisals, but we don't have the comps to back them up. And so because people have so much in savings, they're saying, I'll put 20% down. I want to maximize my borrowing, but should the appraisal come in low, I'm going to go into my piggy bank and take this extra cash and I'll make up the difference. So we're starting to see new comps come our way, which will then help the appreciation. My theory is that we are eventually going to hit a burnout of escalating prices. So if the prices continue to go up, then when do we hit the ceiling? Ryan, where do you think interest rates are going? Because the main driver of this price escalation that happened in June and then again in November was interest rates. As the interest rates decrease, buying power increases, we're dealing with fake money now. If the interest rates start to go up, then we're going to see kind of a pumping of the brakes of escalation of home prices, except for the fact that people have a shit ton of cash. Excuse me.
I wish I did.
Well, the prediction is that the rates will continue to stay pretty low here for the rest of this year. 2022 is when I think that the rates will start to go up The
Mhm.
Fed right now is pumping money into mortgage-backed securities. So as soon as they stop that, that's going to make rates go up pretty quickly, because right now they're basically printing money and they're buying mortgage-backed securities, and that's making the rates stay as low as they are. I think we already hit the bottom. I think the bottom was in January when we got to a 30-year fixed got close to 2.5%, and then it's jumped up a little bit. We're right around a 2.75 right now with a good credit score, which is still incredible.
Right.
I think it's going to stay probably in this range. By the end of this year, I think it's going to be a little bit closer to 3. So I think it may go up just a little bit, but not enough to make a big difference. Tisha, as far as your question on Gig Harbor area, I think we are in such a unique area of the country that there's too much overflow. So many people are moving to this area, and now Gig Harbor is like the secondary market, like Paige was saying, to that overflow of Seattle. And there's so many families who want to come down and get a yard and get an area for a sport court or like a tree house and all the cool stuff that you can get in Gig Harbor in a single
And
family.
good schools,
Yeah.
Right.
a huge factor as a magnet for our schools.
Yep.
So I would
got
love,
kids here.
since
I
I
love it.
work with buyers, I would love to be able to say it would get less competitive, because right now it's really hard. And what Paige was saying with all the people doing the 22 ADs and throwing all that money, I mean, that's great for the people that have a ton of assets, but I also work with a lot of younger people, like newly married, first-time home buyers, and it's discouraging because they don't always have that cash to do those type of things. So I would love for it to be a little bit easier, but as far as like in the short term, in the next year or so, I don't see the competition slowing down all that much, other than the inventory hopefully here taken off. We're crossing our fingers for that.
I am hoping that with the vaccine that we see the downsizers hopefully getting brave enough to sell their house and do it. We can do it in a safe way, as we have been. And so it's getting people, hopefully some people that are on here that feel optimistic enough to be able to put their house on the market, because I know a lot of people are holding off on listing their homes because they're scared. So I think that we will see a strong market if we see interest rates go up. I think Matthew Gardner, who is our chief economist at Windermere, he was saying maybe we hit 3.2%, which is still nothing. I mean, it's something, it will change a little bit of buying power, but not enough to slow the market that much. And then we just have to look at temperament of buyers. But right now, what we can't put a price tag on, and this is the worry of overpricing. If you're too aggressive, you lose that, you lose the eyeballs. You're going for views versus, it's kind of a numbers game. Like for every 8 people that go through the house, one of them writes an offer. But you can't put a price tag right now on the desperation that buyers have. And that is the biggest lesson in the real estate agents that list your house, is helping you stay patient when you get a freaking amazing offer. We got one at 75,000 over ask on day one with a lot of really good waived contingencies, but there was a few things that were off about it. And that's an inexperienced agent on the other end who's writing it up and doesn't quite know what they're doing. And you hold out and you get an offer that's a little bit tighter and a little bit cleaner, because we're at the point where some agents are like, I'll send you a blank contract. You have your client fill it out and just send it back to me. No babies, no kidneys. So great for sellers, challenging for buyers. One question that came in, I just want to hit on that really quick. If you're selling in a price range that sells well, like $1 million, so you're in one of those hot price ranges, and you need the proceeds from the sale, so you're contingent on your home sale, what can you do? You've got to sell your house first, go into a rental, or list your house at a competitive price that attracts all the people in all the land and get yourself a rent back. there are cash buyers out there, especially in that 1 million to 1.2 million, anything under the 1.2, I would say there's cash out there. Or if it's a rambler, depending on the Gig Harbor market, a 1-story house is going to sell really well. If you price it appropriately, you can attract a buyer that will give you a rent back, especially if it's a cash buyer, because they don't have any kind of lending restrictions on rent backs. Isn't a rent back 60 days, Ryan? Is there a restriction on it getting a seller rent back?
I don't know if there's a rent back. Oh, so there's a for most primary residents, you do have to move in within the first 60 days of the
Yeah.
loan closing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a thing.
Yeah.
They
So
would
that's,
have to move
so
in.
if you're getting a financed buyer, then you have 60 days to move out, and your agent better be working her ass off to find you a house off market. So,
Hey, real quick, Paige, I have to run to another call, but just to kind of give you guys an idea, because I like to show the numbers. So on a $400,000 loan at today's interest rate at 2.75, so 4% kind of a normal rate in the normal market. The difference between 2.75 and 4% at a $400,000 loan is $280 a month, if you can believe that. If you go up to a 600,000 loan, which is Paige just shared that the purchase price average here is getting towards 800,000.
yeah.
If you were to buy a $750,000 home with 20% down, your loan amount would be 600,000. And at that level, your difference in payment between 2.75 and a 4% is $415 a month.
Yeah.
So it's a huge difference. A lot of people don't realize that interest rate actually affects your buying power a lot more than purchase price does. So if you are thinking about making a move the rest of 2021, maybe not right this second, because what we talked about is so competitive right now, but 2021, when the rates are low, is a great time to do it because of the fact that you can utilize that buying power. And even though the prices are high, the affordability is actually better than it has been in the past.
Before you go, Ryan, what do you think about the amount of refinancing that has happened across the country and the chances of those people selling and getting out of that rate at some point? I
Good
think that
question.
this inventory crisis from that standpoint is going to be an interesting, our 5-year cycle of people turning over homes. I mean, at some point people have to move because of babies and stuff like that. But I do think that's going to affect the turnover rate of homes in the future because people are locked in at such 30-year fixed rates.
At such a low rate, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also we were kind of already seeing this before the rates went to below 3%, but there's a lot of people who were doing cash out refinances and deciding that they wanted to renovate their current home just because it was so tough in this market. I think the thing that's going to offset that is there's so many people now who have changed their idea. I think there's so many new people who want to get a bigger house, get a house with I'm one of those people. I'm a move up buyer. I don't have kids yet. Me and my wife knew that at some point we would move up. But then when COVID hit, we were like, oh, well, we don't both have an area to work from home. We need a bigger house. We were already going to move up. But once the rates went so low and the inventory was down, we were like, boom, this is the time to do it. So especially right now, I think if you're a move up buyer, it's an extremely good time to do that because you can list your home and really have no competition and have no bones picked about any repairs done. You can basically do nothing and just list it. So I think there's a lot of people out there who are like that, who are going to offset that. But we are seeing it used to be a 5-year average, and I think that's trending up.
7 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think people are trending a little bit longer in the same home, and they will utilize a cash out refinance because they can still get a really good interest rate in order to do home improvements and stay in the same place.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. I know you have to go. Thank you for helping share some information on that. I try to stay in my lane, houses only.
No, this is fun. We should do it again.
Yeah. So back to the contingency question. What I was kind of joking with on Inman News, we have a community of agents across the country, and I was joking a little bit about the fact that contingencies are dead till 2022. If you have a house to sell, I would recommend shopping local for your agent. Find somebody that can either source that matchup for you to say who's the seller that needs a little bit more time, that will give you the permission to buy a house contingent, knowing it's going to sell very quickly. The fact is that sellers don't have to do that. So having relationships in the industry that we can hear about some of that stuff coming on, so you can say, look, we might have a chance at this house, but we've got to sell your house. We've got to get a rent back. That's the best way that I've seen it happen, is identifying a seller that needs time themselves. A lot of times a contingent seller would be one of those people. And then let's see, you could try to buy a contingency, but you have to have the money to back it up, because when you're buying a contingency, I'll give you 50 grand more to take my contingency, so I don't have to move twice, and I just want the house and this is perfect for me and all that. I might have been one of those people. I was a contingent buyer. I was my own worst nightmare. I found the perfect situation, but it did cost me a pretty penny to be able to get into that particular home and then be able to sell my house and be able to flip into it. So I haven't moved in yet. I'm still contingent on the stupid sale of my house. So it hasn't closed yet. But that does mean that you're going to pay extra to even a pending sale. A lot of times buyers with a pending sale, because you have your financing, and then you also have the financing of your buyer. So you've got some extra layers of risk in there. And at the end of the day, if you want to take an extra 50 grand and worst case scenario, the shit all falls apart, then you go back to market and you still get your money and you take theirs too. Because as a seller, another piece that people are using to try to win is forfeiting earnest money at the time of mutual. So I come to you, I say, I want to buy your house. I'm going to give you $10,000. And as soon as we are mutual, I'm going to release it to you and you can have it. And if for any reason the deal falls apart, financing, contingency, anything, you can keep my money and you could go back to market and sell it again. So I don't see a lot of those being that successful, but one of those offers came to me. It was a $50,000. They waived all contingencies, but they were not cash. And they were going to give me $50,000. And if anything fell apart, I could take that money and go to the next buyer. And you can put somebody in backup immediately and they'd take their spot. I still went with the cash buyer. I probably shouldn't have, but I did. So, but there's hard decisions being made at the seller level. And for me, being a contingent buyer myself, I wanted something that was going to be a sure deal. So, and most sellers, depending on what they're doing right now, they want the sure deal too. We're going to sit there and have the conversation and say, who's the cleanest, easiest ever? And your agent should be having a conversation with the other side to find out what is most important to that seller. Because for me, it was important that somebody did a pre-inspection, especially because I was an agent selling my own house. There's extra liability with that. But yeah. So any other questions? Anybody else have anything else?
Great information.
Oh, thanks. Open houses, in case anybody's wondering, open houses just came back. So they're back on the table as of today. It's 10 people max inside the home. Sign in for tracking. That's just something that I do, not for stalking, for tracking in case somebody gets COVID. Masks are required, of course. Social distancing is required. We actually lock the doors once we hit capacity to make sure that we are in compliance with the DOL orders and Governor Inslee's requirements. And we have 2 people, one person that's inside the house that can answer questions and one of them that is at the door to make sure that we can handle traffic control. Do you need an open house to sell your house? You don't really. The nice thing during COVID is that you have to have a scheduled showing appointment. And right now, depending on your house, if you have a hot home, then your showing appointments will be booked up within the first 6 hours for the entire weekend. So if you have somebody like, actually the offer that we ended up taking for the house over the weekend, they could not get an appointment, and I had reserved an appointment just in case for somebody like that. Cash buyer needed an appointment to see the house. They ended up being the one that won the house. And so that is premeditated, like real estate ninja stuff of trying to make sure that we make room for the agents that we know have really good qualified buyers in our own market, versus, somebody, Bluefin or something like that. Just made that up. Sometimes they don't know their agents and stuff like that. So, they're buyers. But if we know that we have an agent that calls us, it's like, how do I get in? Having that done. Open houses are helpful in allowing that time slot for people who can't get a showing time. So it's going to help increase your exposure. Do you really need it in this market? If you are very COVID scared, I wouldn't do it. It's going to be more people and more traffic. In this market, knowing if you are pricing correctly, I would get out of town for those 4 days. Put your dogs in a boarding kennel and turn over your house for a minute. We'll clean it before it goes to market. And then I'll clean it after it's done and make sure that it's completely clean for our guests and it's completely clean when you guys come back. And then, that was a big question we had 48 showings at my house, and it was like 48 people touching everything. So yeah, we just can clean and sanitize afterwards, but, that's it. And then a lot of times if you have a cash buyer, or if you have somebody with a really high down payment, you might get an appraisal waiver. And that means that there's nobody coming in for an inspection if they waived inspection or they did a pre-inspection, and an appraisal waiver is going to help you as well, by having one less person come through your house, and then you can destage and get out. My stagers wear masks. Everybody on my team, deep into my world, are all really take those COVID precautions seriously. And the COVID guidelines for open houses, they are cracking down, and it is a criminal offense. I don't know what level, but it's not just like a hand slap from the real estate industry. It is law. It's by law. So I think that's an important distinction in knowing how seriously they take it, to make sure that we don't go back and forth. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm trying to think if I had anything on my fake presentation, just in case nobody had any questions, to be prepared. Let's see. Let me go back here and look.
I got a quick question about the appraisal waiver. That's only
Okay.
with your cash buyers, right? Like if you're getting financing, they don't have that option. Is that correct?
Depends on what your down payment is. If you're doing a 20% down, or usually more than 20%, you can see an appraisal waiver for sure at like 50%, 70% down. If you're doing a 20% down, you won't know until your purchase and sale hits your lender's desk to know if you can get an appraisal waiver. They have to put it in the system. But if there is enough information in the system on that property, then you can get an appraisal waiver. If there's been enough turnover, and you're within that margin of error, you can get an appraisal waiver for a Freddie or Fannie loan. If you're in jumbo territory, no. Like you can't get an appraisal waiver for a jumbo. Those are backed by private investors. And in my case, I'm a jumbo, and I had to have 2 appraisals, which totally stressed me out because if it didn't appraise, it was going to be sold to somebody from Seattle with cash, and I would have lost it. But they go based on your history of the house. So if they can see that the house had good history, and sometimes they might take the neighborhood into account. The one I put under contract last night has never hit the market. They are the original owners. And We're at 26% down, so we might get an appraisal waiver, but because it's never sold, we weren't super, we didn't feel 100% on that. And so we did ask for a 22 AD, which I don't think they'll need. Like I said, the 22 AD, that's an additional down due to low appraisal. It doesn't have to be the total amount. It can be, $5,000. It's just something. And 5,000 is better than nothing when you're looking at the competition between buyers. So I personally put all of my sellers. So here's how I handle multiple offers with sellers. With sellers, I put it into a spreadsheet. We have a Zoom meeting. I share my screen. We talk about each offer, or we do it in person. And then evaluate the offers based on the numbers. I don't share buyer love letters with the seller because they will change your mind. They'll influence your decision. So I don't recommend that people read them until after they have accepted the offer and we're past all the contingencies. Every now and then I get a seller that insists on reading them. And then I always tell them, you better write a letter to yourself about why yourself needs that money, why your kids need that money, because we make emotional decisions sometimes, especially when it comes to your house. And my job is to protect your financial interests, but I'm also, you guys are the boss. And so I'll do whatever you want. But there's the other piece of sellers reading love letters is that we have to be careful of fair housing and making sure that we're not discriminating against race, gender, familial status, and other reasons like that. So that's another way to protect my sellers from any kind of pending lawsuits, because right now it is such a heated market that when they lose, people are super pissed and want to know why. And if you are a buyer, write the freaking love letters because they work. And most agents aren't cold-hearted bitches like me, where I'm like, nope, don't read it. They're going to read them. They're going to go pour all over them. I don't read them myself because it makes a difference. And I don't want to do any of that. Sometimes I don't hear my seller's story. I don't hear their own love letter, and they tell me at the end, and they're grateful that I didn't have them read those, because their story is so important to them, why they need the money, why they need this closure, especially in a winter sale. A lot of people don't want to move in the middle of the winter. And so when they're doing it right now, there's usually a really good reason. So, or they just want all the money because February is the most incredible year ever for sellers. So this is an exception year to all of the seasonal trends that we usually see. The only exception to the seasonal trend is that we have low inventory, but this is the lowest inventory we've ever seen. January of 2020, we hit 81 homes on the market. We're down to 41 homes now. So 81 was our worst month last year. Now it's even worse. So if you're a buyer, let's start looking for a house off market, because they're out there. I've done six transactions off market since January. I'd say end of December. It's not easy to do, but they're out there. Okay, I think we covered a lot of things. Anybody else have any other questions? I appreciate you all listening to my talking head.
This has been good. Thank you so much.
Good. Do you live here in the area?
I do. Yes. I live here in the area. I have kids. I work for Core Title.
Oh, okay.
With
Perfect.
Lucy Ritchie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
It's interesting to hear different brokers' perspectives on the market and what's happening. And
well, if you have anything to add, I'm happy to hear it.
Oh, you're fantastic. You are so full of knowledge. This is interesting. And I always have my own personal friends asking me, what are all the brokers saying? So it's good for me to pass along this information and line them up with the right people. So
yeah, well, and outside of my market, if anybody's looking to move to Tacoma or Federal Way, I don't go there, but I know all the best agents out there. So I stay in my little wheelhouse here. So I appreciate title companies working as overtime as they have right now to get us prelim so that we can waive title and
Yeah.
look at those HOA documents, because that's where we're getting them, is from title to get the CC&Rs,
Right.
and any other documentation. So
Mhm.
let's see. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? We're all good? Kevin? Just kidding. I can see your arm. Okay. All right. Cheers, guys. If you need me, I'm here. AskPaigeschulte.com. All the best of luck to you guys out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Paige.
thank you.
That was really interesting.
Talk to you later. Bye.
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 Bye.